So I've been meaning to really just sit down and talk about this series, Doombreaker, which honestly has just won me over. I've been binging the series, currently around like chapter 35 at this moment, and legitimately it's quite the read. Like, I just straight up, before I go any further, if you are looking for something action-packed with some gorgeous art, as you can see here, like, there's some really gorgeous-looking art. Like, this really just speaks for itself. I really recommend it. But obviously, there is a lot more going on with this series besides just, like, the gorgeous art. There is a really good story taking place that honestly is just it hits all the right notes, everything I want from a story like this. And so let's dive headfirst into it. So, Doombreaker. What is it about? Well, the title basically kind of gives that away. It's, our main character is trying to break, literally, the end of the world, so to speak, or the doom of the world. So he's breaking Doom, or Doombreaker. And, I think that legitimately, he's a fascinating character, because what we're introduced to in the first chapter, this is the first chapter here, is that, he's fighting literally the final boss. That he's literally fighting the final boss, and he's at the end of the ropes. Basically, he's used everything in his arsenal. He's the last man standing. And when I mean last man standing, he is legitimately the last human left alive in the world, and he is fighting the Demon King, so to speak, or a demon god. And after using everything at his disposal to be able to hurt this demon god and bring him down, it still was not enough in the end. Even with everything at his back and his disposal, he was not able to overcome it. And so in this entire circumstance, basically, he dies. Like, the end result of the first chapter is that the main character dies, and he appears in this holy sanctum, aka the afterlife, where the realm of the gods are, and he hasn't necessarily passed on to the underworld or anything like that yet. He gets to talk with the gods, and they offer him, like, some choices. Like, hey, we could, resurrect you, we can bring you back, so to speak, and, we can have you redo everything again. And basically, he starts to talk about how, like, in the early stages of the war, when, the demons started to spread amongst his world and started to fight, the gods of this holy realm turned against humanity. They just completely gave up helping them. Priests no longer could use heal or defend allies, etc. And you can see this right here. And it resulted in basically the gods just saying, we don't care about your little world anymore. And so, obviously, the MC has a deep resentment, not just towards, let's say, the Demon King or the Demon God, but also just the gods of the Holy Realm, angels, etc. And he's like, how can I trust these individuals that were just so quick to turn their back on people right at the start before things really got bad? So it's a very interesting beginning, so to speak. And as it carries on, pretty much, he comes to find out that, pretty much the gods want to see something entertaining. That's literally what this angel says to him in the first chapter, and it kind of puts everything into perspective, that the gods of this world do not see humanity as anything significant. The only thing that they care about is just literally being entertained. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else. And so it automatically puts in perspective that they never really cared about humanity. Humanity never really entertained them to begin with. They were only there on a whim, so to speak. And, thanks to just the overall deeds of the main character is the reason why now they seem to have taken a little bit of an interest, because the MC's obviously, he's entertaining. And this is why they're even giving him a second chance at life, to put him back at the start of everything, to be able to do everything over again, and give them basically a new movie, or a sequel follow-up movie, which is really messed up to think about. But anyways, once all this is said and done, basically, our MC has to travel through loops in different ways to be able to overcome obstacles before him, and he starts off basically back at zero again. He doesn't have his original powers or anything like that. He has to start with pretty much the base strength he had, but he has all the knowledge at his disposal, all the things he's accumulated over those years. He knows what he can do, and he knows certain directions of how maybe the world is going to go in the following months to years. So, because of this, he uses anything he can to be able to achieve victory and stop the demon god himself from even being resurrected within the world. And so in this chapter, chapter 28, it kind of gives us more of a perspective on just what the gods have done to the MC. For instance, when he got basically reincarnated, or not reincarnated, like transported back in time in a second chance at life, they gave him a few perks, so to speak. Perks that, normal people wouldn't have, but perks that would benefit him, so to speak. And these perks all have their, little, helpful little things that can help him through certain battles, but overall they were used to really just shackle him where he couldn't do things. And here's a good example of this. It talks about it right here. Wall of Iron. Pretty much, you know, he would be able to be incredibly strong, be able to resist a lot of things thanks to his stamina and endurance, but if his mana hits 0, all the accumulated damage just hits him at once. So it's like this. It's like, if you have this ability and you take a punch to the face, you won't feel it. But let's say you get punched 1,000 times in the face. You don't feel it because obviously this skill. But when your mana hits 0, 1,000 of those punches, all those punches hit you all at once. And you don't have anything to defend it. And so pretty much the skill alone that one of the gods gave him was where, eventually you're going to run out of mana. You're going to hit 0 mana. And then the debt's going to have to be paid. And you're going to get hit by all that damage that this skill covered for you for all those years. There is no limit to it. So pretty much, eventually, it'll reach a threshold to where the damage will just be so extreme, it would just incinerate his body to the very atom, so to speak. So that's automatically just like, wow. So they gave him a double-edged sword. This god alone did. And then, we have, the egg of mystical, which basically he's able to use a mystical egg to bring to life and hatch and help him. But obviously, as he says himself, most of the creatures within the world are hostile. So hatching it and you get a wrong, egg hatch, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to do anything. So pretty much it's just straight up like, it's a gotcha box, like a loot box, so to speak, but most of the time you're just going to get a bad roll. And obviously you can see what's going on here with this god. He just wants to see the expression of the MC of when he gets something really bad that hatches out of the egg. Then he got strong luck, which overall, this is something that isn't really bad. He even says himself, doesn't have any penalties, but basically, because of just how limited uses there are, he has to really plan out when he wants to use this perk. There's only 3 times he can use it. And so once he uses those 3 times, this perk is gone. It's deleted. So even though it doesn't have, let's say, any drawbacks, so to speak, the thing is if he uses his chances wrong, it's over. He can't use it anymore. So he has to use this at really important parts of the story to be able to overcome certain events. And then you get to the Sword of Light. And pretty much he would be able to use the Sword of Light, but upon touching it, he could be incinerated completely, but also in turn, it could cause him to become basically a disciple of this goddess of light, to where he would pretty much be her servant, so to speak. That's what would happen if he used this sword. Then he have Revive. If he dies, he could actually revive in 3 days. So this shows that even if he does die, he can come back. But once he does, he would lose all his free will because obviously the god of death would have his soul. So it's very interesting. All the gods pretty much have shackled the MC and he's leashed in with these perks, and if he messes up, it's over for him. So he has to use anything at his disposal to be able to win, and these perks don't really even help him out to begin with. And the reason why I'm using chapter 28 here is because he does something incredibly intelligent. He starts to write a bloody symbol on the ground in front of the boss that's about to kill him, because he knows it's over. And you have the angel that he met in the first chapter appear before him, and it's like, why are you writing that symbol? And the symbol that he's basically writing on the ground is apparently like a symbol that represents the defeat of the gods. And now, we don't necessarily know how he knows this, and the angel even questions him, like, how does he know this? And you would think that these almighty beings that obviously have been watching him for entertainment would know this, but it kind of implies maybe they just weren't always watching him, because obviously, they didn't care about humanity. Maybe towards the end of his life, they started watching the MC. And so that may be the reason why they don't actually know. Regardless of that, though, I do think that legitimately it's a very fascinating direction the story is taking, because it's basically saying the MC's not just against, let's say, the demon god, he's against all of the holy beings, and they're all using him in their own way. Now, there might be a few that could be legitimately good, maybe the goddess of light, maybe, the god of death itself, because, what's stated later on after this chapter is that the god of death doesn't really take a lot of interest in humanity, doesn't care, pretty much like all the other gods, but somehow he decided to take an interest in the MC Zypher, and which resulted in all the other gods to kind of get interest, because why would a death god care about this world? What's going on here? And so that's what kind of got them interested. So I feel like the death god obviously is going to play a huge role in the upcoming story of, Doombreaker, because of just what it really represents, because even if he does die, theoretically, he's going to come back. So yeah, Doombreaker is legitimately good. Like I said, the artwork is really great. I cannot get enough of this series. It's really, really fun. It's such a beautiful looking series too, with its combat and skills and stuff. And even though it might seem kind of samey to some people, I do think that there is enough uniqueness here that just really does make it engaging. I actually would put it on par in terms of enjoyment with Omniscient Reader at this point. That's how much enjoyment I have with Doombreaker. But I guess I will leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do leave me a like. A link to this series is in the description, so you can check it out for yourself. You can read it, and it would also help me out a lot if you click on the link, so I would greatly appreciate it. But with that, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.